The Troy Franklin, Wan'Dale Robinson, Cam Skattebo, Bhayshul Tuten Victory Lap Hour. That's what we're talking about today on Stealing Bananas. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the newsletter at the Stealing Signals newsletter, bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Shawn Siegele. You can find all of his great work over at RotoViz. Before we jump into it, Shawn is dealing with a little bit of sickness here. You might hear a few little coughs here and there. He mentioned he may need me to carry the convo at times. If you ever need to go to mute Shawn, go right ahead. I'll jump in, pick it up. Listeners, if you ever hear Shawn halfway through a point not finish it, that will be likely why. We're not going to go very long. We're not going to edit the pod and make it all perfect and listenable. It's late. It's Sunday night. We've watched all the games. Shawn needs his sleep. I need my sleep for writing signals. You need your sleep just to feel better. I appreciate, and the listeners I know appreciate that you are still willing to do this and jump on and happy to do this because it's so fun to talk about the games.
Yeah, hopefully this is sort of the last vestiges of that. We'll call it interesting trip back to Tucson and then back to Kansas City. Been getting ready to move into the new house. It's been about a year in the making. So that is very exciting, but not as exciting as the football. Week one is always fun because it's football again. And there were a few games that were awesome. So it's not like, we were left out in the desert last week, but there were a lot of games that were terrible. There were still, plenty of performances in week two, but week two was fun because, there was a lot of high scoring football. There were a lot of big fantasy performances. That's what we want to see. Sometimes even, if they're against you, but you're like scoring. We're in this to watch those scoreboards, go crazy, not creep up. Like we're out there watching the grass grow. And week two was fun. This was one of those handful of weeks, I think, during the season, recently with how defenses evolved, it feels like we only get like 4 of these a year. And so when they happen, we want to be just really immersed in enjoying them. And then the other thing I just wanted to say was like, why do we not have Wandell on more teams? It seems like there's someone who could have just been out there saying like, Wandell's gotten a lot of targets, we should draft him. Where was that person?
Well, it's the same person that for the newsletter readers decided to write a whole piece yesterday on Saturday just to say that Quinshon Judkins was definitely not going to play very much. And that I've spent the entire August as well very confident that Quinshon Judkins, when he did become active, would not do basically exactly what he did. So
in your defense, and even though his numbers look superficially fine, it did completely bog down the offense that the Browns had established last week by trying to get him going today. There's no need to cater to people who are causing all of these problems. Quinshon Judkins can play. He's a big athletic back, although didn't play to that last year at Ohio State and had a breakaway run today. We're like, oh, he got through. Now this person who's got the great, long speed will maybe take it. He didn't take it anywhere. He got tackled right from behind by the guy right behind him. So he did play, and it did kind of mess up the Browns, who weren't going to be competitive anyway.
Yeah. But no, you were talking about how fun week two was, and I think it was an incredible week. The thing that I think is my big takeaway from the first 2 weeks this year is more so than other years, and it's typically this way. It's sort of the way that we like to play fantasy football. You keep your eye on this prize more so than me, and I would credit you with my play style trending this way over the years, but just trying to draft the players and not worry about the situations, but the profiles and the talents and expecting things to break their way. I think through 2 weeks in 2025, that has happened in more offenses around the NFL than any season I can remember ever. There's so many situations where we're already getting the talent cream rising to the top and the players and the stuff. We talk about the Troy Franklin thing. All of the stuff about Franklin that I said was because of Sean Payton's past trends, which seemed pretty definitive. Today, we see Franklin just seeing way more usage than Cortland Sutton, which was fantastic. We see Cam Skattebo already just clearly the lead back. I mean, completely taking over that backfield. We see Bhayshul Tuten, who they traded Bigsby away to make room for, look so dynamic and so explosive. And we already saw that with Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt. They traded away Brian Robinson. I mean, these teams are trading away veterans to make room for the rookies. There's so many talented players that are getting these opportunities so much earlier. But they're gonna figure that out eventually. I think that was the longer term plan for them. But
we hope that they do. It was so exciting today to watch Skattebo and Tuten. It still was a really weird deal where it's like, as much as I expect, I did not have those two guys emerging, and Skattebo pretty clearly just winning the starting job, like way before Travion Henderson and RJ Harvey. So, I mean, there's still some things we're waiting for, but yeah, I mean, everything about Skattebo and Tuten being much bigger talents than where they were drafted. It's also one of those things where, you watch a Chiefs game, you watch some of these teams that are struggling. You're like, you had picks throughout this draft. What were you waiting on? Because, if you don't have the running back play, and, some of the teams could make the argument maybe that they did have their guy. It was interesting. I was very skeptical of Javonte Williams last week. I'm still skeptical, but I think it's important to give him credit for having some nice runs today, which really wasn't the case last week. He fell into some touchdowns. He looked different today than he looked last year. And that's, what he claimed in the offseason. 8 times out of 10, it's because it's the offseason and you haven't been hit and you're not running next to other NFL players. And it's still probably going to be something where, they got both of those guys in the end zone. I think the Cowboys still need Jaden Blue involved if they want to be able to pull away from some of these bad teams. Now, they scored a ton of points, so points were not the issue, obviously. But, yeah, I don't know why I went over to Javonte Williams. The main point here was the Cam Skattebo was very excited.
Yeah. Well, so it's so funny. In the first few games that I watched, I had a point that I was going to make on tonight's show, that the teams are using the wrong running backs, which is a point that you have driven home over the last several years, that running back talent is way more significant than people realize. And I think really as the defenses have shifted, and we've talked through the what the defenses are taking away and what they're giving you, and they're taking away the explosive stuff and the cover 2 shells and all these things. You need explosiveness, ball in hand ability near the line of scrimmage to keep that success rate type of offense moving and keep the chains moving, and guys that can break tackles and make things happen. Like, one of the notes that I had on this point about teams using the wrong running backs is it's not even a knock on DeAndre Swift, who looked fine today, but the Bears just don't really have options because Kamananga doesn't look exciting either. But watching that Ben Johnson offense and it being fascinating to watch it against the Lions, and thinking about the Ben Johnson offense last year when I had Jahmyr Gibbs catching these passes and they're throwing these early down passes to the running back position, and DeAndre Swift is not making the first guy miss ever. He's never evading that tackle and turning a 2-yard catch into an 8-yard catch because he beats that one guy in the flat and then runs up the sideline. And again, Swift looked fine. I'm not trying to pick on him necessarily, and I don't necessarily think that the Bears have other options, but the Ben Johnson offense looked worse because it didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs in it, right? And the other teams that I referenced in this little note were, the Steelers using Kenneth Gainwell at all. Washington on Thursday delaying the Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt takeover, which you just referenced. And then I also wrote Javonte, Sean, because I before he really went off, I was making this note while I was watching the first half of that game, but I was writing the Cowboys think they can build part of their offense around Javonte, and it's just sort of silly. And he ends up looking good. He breaks a lot of tackles in this game, and I think that physical aspect of it was something that we didn't see a lot last year. The broken tackles and the ability to get yards after contact was really, really great from him. His 30-yard touchdown, he does deserve credit for staying strong sort of through the hole, but he gets out the other side of the little massive bodies 8 yards downfield, and there's just no safety on the play. There's no one up in the middle of the field. And so he never even gets to like top speed because he doesn't need to, as he kind of just coasts to the end zone. So I can't really argue that he, didn't have a second gear, but I mean, looked like he was about to be ran down by everyone on the field. It wasn't the type of 30-yard touchdown run where you're like, oh my God, so many more explosives are going to come. And I understand how that sounds as somebody who was not on Javonte, but we still do these podcasts to help people and inform them. I still believe that what we've seen through 2 weeks and what people are going to want to credit Javonte Williams for is not what we're going to think of Javonte Williams as in week 17 when we look back on the full season. He is clearly, to me, overperforming what he's going to wind up being. Now, to your point, the Dallas Cowboys offense does look favorable. Miles Sanders looked somewhat good. Some of those situations are going to be there for those guys, but it's a situation where, I mean, he's working to a degree through these first couple matchups. There's a lot of plays where they're giving the ball to Javonte Williams, and it's just a wasted down right now. And they almost lose this game. Russell Wilson played a lot better, but man, I mean, I think if they had some explosion of that running back position, it would be different.
Yeah, and my problem with the Cowboys is probably more tactical than anything, where you have the opponent come out and run an 850 field goal drive, right? A 16-play drive against you, 2 plays to Javonte Williams. Now, granted, that sets up a third and short, but you don't get it. You go 3 and out, as opposed to, again, this idea of trying to convert within the first 2 downs. Don't even get into third down, so you can mostly keep these drives going, not risk that when you can get into these situations where the game just completely gets away from you. Now, because, I mean, Russell Wilson, this was one of the most fun things I've ever seen. And I'm very happy for him that he comes out like 3 years washed up and has his biggest game ever. He did also seal it with a punt pass that was just a pure punt, which you probably don't want to do late in overtime. But that ended up getting the game going back and forth, right? But Ben, one of the things that happened here that gets overshadowed by what then transpired, because a lot else happened as the game went along, was that you get this second consecutive, very short drive that also starts with a first down handoff to Javonte Williams. You're already in the second quarter at that point, right? The first 2 drives for the Giants encompass 24 plays and 2 field goals, and you go 3 and out a couple of times because you're starting these drives off with Javonte Williams. The fact that he ran well through the rest of the game, I don't think absolves you of the fact that if the Giants punch in those early scores, especially with how bad your defense is, which the Giants then subsequently demonstrated by, I mean, Ben, these lines are crazy. We get, so, and it's very possible that the Malik Nabers play is going to still not work, but the reason that we basically had the top 3 guys for most of the offseason until it got just very, I mean, we had plenty of people questioning the Nabers play in the Reddit AMA, I think very justifiably, because I mean, there's serious concerns about his health. But if those concerns weren't there, then this game right here is why, I mean, the top 3 players in fantasy are Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, and Malik Nabers, and then CeeDee Lamb probably in there with those 4 guys, right? Now, you know, Bowers also unfortunately dinged up early in the season, so you're dealing with some injuries. Now, obviously, and as we record, I don't actually have the info on this, but obviously you lose Joe Burrow during the course of the game today. So we got problems with most of this quartet. But 9, 167, and 2 for Nabers, and 8, 142, and 1 with Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean,
that was fun because I've been saying specifically that the air yards are going to be there. I wrote in Stealing Signals that his longest air yards play from week 1 was negated by a penalty. I wrote in the input volatility post that I probably think I gotta find the specific note, because I wrote that I think that there's more air yards upside with Wan'Dale Robinson than basically. I hate that I keep having to do this, but Wan'Dale Robinson got the deep shot that got negated by penalty and does have more air yards upside than anyone but me thinks. And then I think the people who've only watched him in the NFL don't realize that he had a very good air yard season in college. Yeah, but he goes out and he hits. I did note I still didn't love the play with Russell Wilson under center, to be clear, for this week. It wasn't like I played him. Sean, my story.
That seems like very targeted at like just let the guy play.
Sean, I had him and I was gonna have to play him in that stacked league, the big charity one that I'm playing through the Reddit guys have set up. It's an industry league. It's a Xavier Worthy team. He gets hurt. I have Jordan Addison on the team. He's obviously still suspended. I have Wandell as my like wide receiver 5. It's not a very deep league. I have Wandell. I'm playing him this week. He's in the lineup. David Kitchen sends me a trade Saturday night. I've cut and re-added Kyle Pitts. He decides he wants Kyle Pitts. I have him behind Brock Bowers. He sends me Hollywood Brown for Kyle Pitts straight up. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll take this trade because I need a wide receiver right now. So I put Hollywood Brown into my lineup, and I put Wan'Dale Robinson onto my bench because of this Saturday night trade that just popped up into my – I didn't even have another wide receiver on the roster.
So you can't even claim that you're a Wan'Dale Robinson lover anymore.
I'm so sad.
Because you understand, right, that Hollywood Brown is terrible, even though he led the league in targets in week 1. No, Hollywood made a nice catch today.
He looked good, yeah.
He had a pass that was like a short pass that was literally knocked down before it got to him, and somehow he got his hands low enough to make the catch on the play. Hollywood is not someone who's known for making great catches or having great hands. That was an extraordinary catch.
He had a couple contested catches, a good game for him. But no, Wandell, the whole thing with the air yards, he catches a 49-yard pass down inside the 5 on a vertical pass. Another later seam route that was for like 20-something, and then late, a go-ahead touchdown on the 4th. This one does get into the end zone for a long TD. But you were talking about Nabers. Nabers is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's better than Jamar Chase. He's the best, like, combination of like the fluidity in his routes and everything, and then also the physicality. I mean, I know that Chase has all that too, but when I watch Nabers, the physicality reminds me of AJ Brown, and the route running reminds me of Justin Jefferson. And I mean, maybe that's how you would describe Jamar Chase too, but it's just, I mean, he's so talented. He does everything. He wins all the contested catches, every one of them. He's just never had a quarterback that even puts the ball near him. But if you put him anywhere, the touchdown was like he's running over his right shoulder, jumps and turns back around to the left side. It's not even a well-thrown ball, and he makes it look good. Like, he makes it look like it was a good pass. Obviously, everyone looks at it and goes, oh my God, what a catch, because it's a diving catch.
Well,
it's a catch that like 3 receivers even can get their hands on, I feel like. I mean, maybe that's an aggressive way of describing it, but he's so talented at playing the ball. He's so talented with the ball in his hands, and he's so talented at running routes. I mean, again, maybe Jamar Chase is the same guy, but God, Nabers is so good. He's a perfect wide receiver.
I mean, Nabers is he's not a huge receiver either by any stretch, but he's bigger and more physical, and is going to be able to make more plays rising up and, you know, through contact, all of those types of things. I want to give Russell Wilson credit for these bombs. I mean, we know that this is kind of what he does well, but a 52-yarder to Darius Slayton, the 50-yarder you mentioned to Wandell, got the 48-yarder in there to Nabers. Both the Nabers touchdowns were balls that a lot of quarterbacks, you know, can't throw that well. And they're just, the passes aren't necessarily that easy. We'll probably get to this game later, but I mean, Ben, it was almost like he was having these flashbacks to all the time Xavier Worthy was open last season. And somehow later in the drive, the Eagles did blow the coverage a second time so that he could drop in a punt pass to him. But the first time that the Eagles blew the coverage and Tyquan Thornton was clear of the defense by like 15 yards, Patrick Mahomes overthrew him by like an additional 15 yards.
That was crazy. Yeah. But no, you're right. Russ is I wasn't trying to dog him too much. The one throw that I'm talking about, the Nabers catch, I did think wasn't necessarily well placed, but it's a bomb. The other TD to Nabers, the TD late to Wandell, both very well thrown balls. Russ played way better in this game until, as you noted, overtime. Then suddenly it was like, oh, that's how you played week 1. Like, as soon as we got to overtime, he started playing that. It was very schizophrenic with Russ Wilson this week, but he had a good game. He had a very, very good game. There was, yeah, it was back and forth and all that. The Skattebo stuff was incredible. Early in the game, he gets a carry and just absolutely runs over a dude. Gains a few extra yards after contact. He loses an early 12-yard gain to an offensive line penalty. The left tackle replacing Andrew Thomas gets like 4 penalties on 1 drive. This one was a blow to the head penalty. They show the replay, and he just took a full-on right swing to the helmet, and he's like, what did I do? And it's like that. the thing that you did.
That was the 16-play drive. They had a 16-play drive in which I think there was maybe even a 5th penalty that got wiped out by something else. But yeah, I mean, you feel bad for him because that's sort of Jawan Taylor-esque for the Chiefs, where you're so overmatched, you're committing penalties on every single play.
Then after the drive, they showed a montage of him talking to all the coaches and all of his teammates. He was going around the sideline like upset and then also being lectured. And I mean, it was a rough start for that guy. I feel for him.
On the other side of things, you do not want to kind of lose your balance in Cam Skattebo's neighborhood because he's going to square his shoulders up and put you on the ground.
Dude, he is the most physical running back in the league already, and he's been in the league for 2 games. And
it's kind of fun because it does balance out him being unbelievably slow, which is the part that the skeptics have.
But at least he does have the explosiveness. The testing where the 40 times really bad, but like the jump explosiveness are really good, and his 10 yards
39 is vertical. When they brought Jackson Dart in, and so then everybody's looking at Jackson Dart, and you're like, what is the package play that they have for him when they brought him in the game here? It's like, well, it's just a hand to Skattebo up the middle, but they had enough misdirection going on there. I mean, we gave Brian Dable a really hard time last week, deservedly so. Again, when you see what Daniel Jones is doing with the Colts, but there were some fun plays in this game where, if you have a hole there for Skattebo to run through, it'll gain, all the way down to the one. And it was one where, again, the ferocity of it, even for NFL players, is just unmatched. And this was the thing too, where you're like, all those 200-yard games last season, and people are like, it's against college players, and it's like, yeah, it is different. But when you go and watch through it, and he's playing at this gear that is just a crazy person's gear all the way through, that drive where he gets that play where he gets down to the 1, I mean, he's tackled to like the 6, contorts his body backward, and then leaps backward, and even doesn't know where the goal line is from that point, but makes like the greatest effort you'll ever see to score on that play. And then the next play, they were like, well, the goal line carry last week didn't work very well, but we better give him one more after what he just did, and just blows through the Cowboys line, which again, I mean, the Cowboys are probably not going to be very stout there, but it was fun. It was also pretty hilarious. And you could just, again, see how hard he was trying on the reception because, I mean, Skattebo was a fantastic receiver. The whole thing we've talked about with him is the high value touches, right? Because, I mean, he's objectively not going to beat a lot of people in a straight line, but there was a pass that was thrown to him with no one around, which was nice because he managed to bat it to himself like 6 times.
7 times. Yeah.
But he did eventually catch it. Yeah. And then once he caught it, he again turns upfield with a vengeance.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite things that you said to me all off season, one of the things that like clicked and crystallized best of any take that you had all off season from me was that the way that Cam Skattebo plays is going to basically, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but he's going to, endear is the word I was trying to think of. You nailed it. Endear him to the coaches and the team and make him the starter and the favorite in the clubhouse and all of those things in short order. And it was like, yeah, I mean, that is the way that he plays. That is the way that's going to go. And then you watch it and you see the huge hit. I was talking about the first couple possessions because you start to see this. I don't know that. Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to matter, but I don't know that this was the game plan coming in. I think it was just like, oh, no, we're going to keep giving the ball to that right there every single time. And it's just, I mean, it was a little bizarre. Devin Singletary got the start actually. So maybe they're a little down on Tracy or what have you, but Tracy is a good back. He's not a back that does these types of things. And it's one of those situations. So I've kind of contradicted myself saying that there's some teams that are playing the wrong running backs. And there's other situations where the right players are getting opportunities early this season, more so than any other year. But this was a clear one with Skattebo where they're like, we're not going to mess around anymore. We're just going to keep giving the guy that is very evidently the better player. The other types of players I was thinking about were like Fannin getting the early work. And we're getting, I think, that type of situation in some different spots. But the running back note is more specific to that position. The other one, Shawn, you look at that Chiefs game you were talking about. I texted you when we were kind of trying to figure out our time and everything. I was working through the games. That game was close late, and obviously the Kelce drop goes for the interception at the goal line, and it's just a really rough blow there. Kelce, we we were a little hard on Kelce last week on the show. He did end up being very hard on himself about taking out Xavier Worthy and saying, you know,
Yeah,
I'm a
you've got to
15-year
really
vet.
like someone who comes out
Yeah.
and says those things.
Like,
it is
that was
something where in
totally
the
on
two
me.
games they've had, the two big plays that have defined the Chiefs season were both Travis Kelce making
That's
mistakes.
where I'm going with this. Like, the whole you should have retired thing is kind of still here. But the other play I was going to reference was the 4th down around midfield. They love using Kareem Hunt in the short yardage stuff. They go to one of those 1940s formations. It's not the wing T, but there's 3 backs in the backfield. Maybe it was the wing T. I can't remember what's what in these old formations. 3 backs lined up next to each other, and they do like a sweep where the other 2 backs are lead blockers, and they get Kareem Hunt moving laterally, which he's not fast enough. Like, if there's one thing that's decent about a short yardage game, it's that he does get downhill. You don't call the play where he's moving laterally. They end up getting, pushed back and aren't able to convert. You can't give Kareem Hunt those touches in a rematch of the Super Bowl. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy to me.
Well, this game was pretty interesting because if you're the Eagles, you probably still have to be a little bit concerned about how you've played in your 2 victories. If you're the Chiefs, you're probably like, the biggest problem that we have here is that our division is going to be good because our team is still fantastic. And maybe it helps you some that Denver managed to commit an atrocious penalty.
What do you mean their team still? What players around Patrick Mahomes are fantastic? I mean, Mahomes looked amazing again.
The defense,
yes,
is good. And I think we can say that even in the context of knowing how poorly Jalen Hurts incorporated Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in week 1, which he obviously really struggled to do a second time. And this was a game in which those guys were the leaders. And so you basically have, he threw 22 passes and gained 101 yards. That was one of the reasons too. And it popped out in a number of the things that Blair put out. Blair, we've got a variety of cool tools on the site for subscribers and anybody who's interested there. And then Blair has some additional things he does, writes a fantastic preview article. The Chiefs' pass defense is tough. And as I was kind of reading through Blair's piece, it, put some things, kind of back in context for me too about the previous week where, there are a lot of really good teams in the AFC, and we got that Bills Ravens thriller on Sunday Night Football last week, and those 2 teams, just seem like the behemoths of the AFC, but they've seemed like that, for 5 or 6 years and not really gotten across the line. I think when you think back to week 1 and those early games and what the Chargers did, the Chargers have to watch this game and be like, we might be really good.
Yeah, no, I wasn't very impressed with either the Eagles or the Chiefs in this game. The Chiefs should have won. To your point, the Eagles had basically no passing yardage. They have 216 total yards in the game. The Chiefs held Saquon Barkley at 88 rushing yards on 22 carries, 4.0 yards per carry on the dot, which is not, that's below his capability, obviously. And that was probably the better part of the Eagles offense, really. Hurts ends up with 9 carries for 15 yards. He didn't even get the scramble yardage like he did in week 1, which was a big part of why they were able to win in week 1. These are all basically tush pushes, which, he did get a rushing TD and Barkley got a rushing TD. But the KC loses because of that turnover at the goal line, the Kelce drop, and then that giveaway on the 4th down at midfield is a huge. I think it was 13-10, and the Eagles went down and scored and made it 20-10, or maybe that was after the interception. They were both pretty huge spots. No, sorry, it was 10-10 early in the 3rd on the downs, and the Eagles went down. They only gained 2 yards but kicked a field goal and were able to make it 13-10. And then 2 punts later, you had the Chiefs interception at 13-10. Eagles drove down, and that interception got returned back to about midfield.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, almost everybody probably has, but that's a touchdown that puts the Chiefs ahead. It's not like it was just a bobble pass that was picked. If he doesn't get in, he's going to be tackled at the 1-inch line. They're going to score. They're going to go ahead.
Yeah. It's a ball right as he's going into the end zone. Tom Brady noted on the broadcast he probably just didn't get his head around quick enough, or he needs to get his head around quicker. I mean, it was pretty clear that. I mean, but again, this is what I was complaining about with him last week, is that like he started later in his career, he started to play more nonchalant, it feels like, and I felt like he did that on the Worthy route, and I felt like he did that on this play. He didn't get out of his route, and
he just still looks athletic. I mean, he gives an athletic vibe, but he's not anymore. He's just old. I don't think he's lazy. I think he's just old.
Okay, well, maybe that's what it is, but that's probably what it is. But Mahomes sees the throws there, throws with anticipation, what everyone's saying every quarterback needs to do, puts the ball on his guy, and it's all Kelce has to do is be able to read that, like, I'm open, and get around and make himself available to the quarterback. I mean, that's when you're running that route and you have the leverage that you need, you're inside of the defender, the throw's going to be there. It's going to be there on time. It's a timing situation. The guy who ends up picking it off is coming down on him, and he's going to lay a huge hit on you if you don't get your head turned around and catch this ball. And you have Patrick Mahomes. Like, they've made a killing out of this for their whole time together. Kelce knows he's got to get his head turned around because Mahomes throws with anticipation on that ball better than anyone. That's what Mahomes does so incredibly well. That ball's going to be there before you have to take the monster hit, and it's going to be right on your hands, and Kelce's late, and he doesn't get his hands up, and it's a perfect throw. And if he just gets turned around, and maybe it is that he's old, but man, if he just gets turned around, that's a touchdown. It should be a touchdown. It's a 17-13 game. We get a better end of this game. Instead, it's bobbled up. It's intercepted. I mean, bobbled up right into somebody's chest, and then that guy runs it back to midfield, and then they have a 50-yard touchdown drive. It's 20-10 Eagles. And then Andy Reid makes the bizarre decision to punt on a 4th and 7. I know it was at their own 29-yard line, but you're down 2 possessions with 7 minutes left against an Eagles team that runs the ball as well as they do and tends to manage clock well late in the game. You just go for it. I mean, you're up by 10. You're not up by, you're down by 10, and they're not moving the ball on you. So even if you give up the possession on downs in field goal position, you can probably hold them to a field goal and go down 13. Right? Or, maybe they end up going for
There were a lot of really strange decisions on this thing of 3 versus 6. And some of them probably tactically make sense, or the math works out. And I'm a huge believer in that. I'm not saying, oh, let's just go with the gut, but we do also need to understand the emotion of things potentially turning and what you can do for your team by continuing to execute drives. Partly, I may just be disappointed that the Jaguars may be too aggressive on 4th down for the Cam Little play. But yeah, so Patrick Mahomes, 7 for 66 and 1 on the ground in this game after the big week 1. And it's very, I think everyone understands that Rashee Rice is the guy you have to make the underneath stuff work. It's more controversial for people that Xavier Worthy is the guy you have to make the vertical stuff work and also run after the catch underneath. And then probably there's there's just huge uncertainty about what Jalen Royals can bring, especially if his knee is jacked up. But he was having a fantastic camp. You have those 3 guys, and you have Patrick Mahomes deciding that he needs to play more like Josh Allen if the Chiefs are going to maintain their dominance in the AFC. I mean, the future is pretty bright, but you've got to get to that, and winning some of these games is important.
Yeah, very important. It would have been one. I mean, they were underdogs at home. It would have felt like them stealing a win there. That would have been a big one. You mentioned some of the coaching decisions. Dan Quinn made a mess of Thursday Night Football. I was thinking, Shawn, we should debut a new segment, Dumb Coach of the Week. Dan Quinn was going to be my Dumb Coach of the Week. We like to talk about some of the coaches that make some bad decisions, but there were several. One of the things about the aggressiveness, Greg Olsen made a great point on the broadcast. I believe he was doing the Giants and Cowboys, and I hadn't really thought through this, but with the starting field position rising because of the 35-yard line on the touchbacks and the ways that the new kickoff rules have led to, starting field position going up and going up and going up. He expects more teams to make similar calculations to what you were talking about with the Jaguars, where they'll go for it instead of settling for a field goal because of the sort of the logic of what, that goes behind EPA models, which is not just the expected points that you get on a drive, but it's your opponent on the drive coming back. And when you go for it deep, like at the 10-yard line, I think the Giants went for it on like 4th and 3 from like the 12 when he was making this point. When you don't convert that, the Cowboys now take over from the 12. And so you're either getting 7 points and kicking off, or they're taking over very deep, pinned back. Or if you take the field goal, you're getting 3 points, but you're giving them the ball at like the 33 or something like that, probably on average, because, you know, the touchbacks go out to the 35. The returns are getting out there past the 30 in a lot of cases. So you're talking about like a 20-yard difference in where the Cowboys are going to start coming back. And it's not worth that just to take the 3 points. It's worth the gamble now to go for 7 when, you know, I mean, these calculations.
One of the things that the Jaguars have to deal with as well is this idea of if you are up 3 and a team is buried, then they're likely to play relatively conservatively and play for the field goal to tie. And we saw teams we saw some kicks today that were amazing. We also saw a bunch of teams play as though they thought their kickers were automatic from 70. So
yeah, the Colts.
I have no idea what you're possibly doing at the end of some of these games. I mean, even the thing with the Cowboys, where you're like, yeah, your kicker is amazing, but I mean, you feel like a long 60-yarder is automatic. I mean, he did make it, but
Javonte Williams going down, and Greg Olson's like, I felt like he had some more yards. I'm like, my chin was on the floor. I was like, yeah, he definitely had more yards. He had like 5 more seconds. How does he not getting more yards there? That was crazy.
So
and then Aubrey just buries it, and you're like, well, okay. But then
but the Colts kicker missed it by like, it was wide and it was also 10 yards short.
Yeah.
Now, granted, his next one from 45 probably would have been good from 60. And so I'm not saying he can't make it, but I mean, understand the percentages as anyway. So you're up by 3 and the team is buried. They probably don't play as aggressively. Whereas if you go up 6, then you know everything the team is going to do from that point is to score the touchdown to beat you. They're going to go on 4th down. They're going to have good field position from that kickoff that you mentioned. And then they're going to play every down as a 4-down situation the rest of the way, which does make things more difficult. Making it more difficult versus, you know, what happened there. Now, again, I mean, Brian Thomas has to catch that ball. At the same time, yeah, it's
apparently there's some stuff. Yeah, like Trevor Lawrence is throwing 90-mile-an-hour hospital balls. I get it, but there's some stuff circulating on social because my brother was sending him to me. I finally was like, yeah, I get the point you're making, but there's some concern out there that Brian Thomas was not playing physical enough into the ball, where he's like shying away from contact, ducking away from the ball, etc. There's some damning replays when I watched it the first time through, I saw a little bit of it, but I didn't pick up as much. And so the stuff that my brother was sending me was helping me understand it. He also sent me a Liam Cohen press conference where they asked him about it. And I mean, he looked like he was very annoyed about it. He was like, I need to go back and watch the film on that. He's like, I'm not sure what happened there. And the way that it was presented in the tweet that my brother sent me was, you know, it looks like he had something more that he wanted to say. And then I'm like, oh, sure. You know, and then I go watch it and I'm like, no, it looked like he had something more that he wanted to say. Like, he didn't seem very pleased about the fact that his wide receiver was not actually trying to play the ball on a couple of those and looked concerned about contact. I don't know what the deal is there. And I didn't notice it the first watch through. So I don't know. I was wondering if you noticed that. You kind of just made a comment about it.
Yeah, no, you've got a combination of things there. Travis Hunter had a really poor game, and it feels right now like that whole thing is a mess because, and it's trickier to watch all the defensive elements of it, but he's certainly struggled on some defensive snaps as well. And you have De'Ami Brown drop an easy touchdown. So there were plays that the team didn't make for Trevor Lawrence. At the same time, you know, not that he had any you know, amazing type of game, but I just go back to, I think so much of what has been the problem for Mac Jones to this point in his career is that he's played on terrible teams. And you think about Brian Thomas going off with Mac Jones at the end of last season where he's throwing more catchable balls. And then you have Mac Jones today go 26 for 39 for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. He brings out a huge performance, or a big performance from Juwan Jennings. He's able to get the ball both on just sort of safety valve types of plays and some deep passes to Christian McCaffrey, get him in the end zone on a reception.
Is the best receiver on that team now, by the way, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, we've talked about this for years, that he's like an elite slot receiver, but that touchdown route that he ran, he's like in line, like a slot alignment. He runs a little corner route into the end zone, and he's open by his, I mean, when I say elite slot receiver, like that's what it looks like when Amon-Ra St. Brown wins on a route and catches the touchdown, and Jared Goff has all this room to throw to, and Amon-Ra can kind of turn and just show him his whole body and catch it, because he creates so much separation even in the small area of the red zone. Christian McCaffrey can do that, and he's a running back. He creates so much separation.
Breaks all of these separation models that are out there, because when he puts his foot in the ground and cuts, his guy is no longer like on the same screen with him.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. He's such a sensational player. So, I mean, the 49ers did not exactly pull away from a clearly work in progress New Orleans Saints team, but I just think some of the things that the Jaguars want to do are going to be tough when you have a QB that throws not an uncatchable ball, but just as we've talked about, I mean,
but that's
he
what
doesn't
it seems like.
He doesn't throw passes that his receivers really want to catch.
That's what it seems like is what the deal was, right? Is that Brian Thomas is like, I want to go back to Mac Jones. I mean, that was my immediate thought as well. I don't want to jump into traffic to catch this 90-mile-an-hour pass. And yet the ball's sailing through and getting picked off. And then, I mean, you got a real issue. I mean, I don't know. I got to see more about that. I don't have a strong take on that, but that was a wild one from today. What did you make of the Judkins stuff? I mean, you talked about it a little bit. He looked okay. Dylan Sampson winds up catching a TD late from Dylan Gabriel. Shout out your guy. But I guess I came away from that thinking similar to you, that like it wasn't really like their offense didn't look necessarily better. They still have a lot of really talented players. Are they going to just build the offense around him now? I mean, that just seems a lot less fun than the fan and stuff and Judy and everything else.
It certainly is less fun. The spread here is not super workable. Cedric Tillman had another kind of fluky type of score in this one. Has the 7 targets. Judy has 8 targets. They're pretty empty. Judy doesn't play very well again. Fannin catches all 5 of his. Njoku gets 5. Jerome Ford gets 6. He was on the field a lot more. It doesn't feel like they are very comfortable running Sampson. I mean, Sampson carried 4 times for 6 yards, so it's not like he's making the case for himself when he is getting rushing touches. The thing that puts you in a little bit of trouble, and again, not that this was the reason that the Browns struggled, but when you have Judkins out there as often as they actually did, then he ends up catching 3 passes as well. That's an understated part of his profile, and that's something that when I had him, ranked really high for sort of some of the rookie guide stuff and throughout most of rookie season, that was one of the reasons I thought that he could.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. Yeah,
who would be viable for some of those types of things. Just even if you go away from sort of the moral element of it, when you are a team that probably needs to start winning some games in order for Kevin Stefanski, who's probably a good coach, and maybe his perspective is just, if I get fired, I'll end up in a better situation. It's sort of the Mike McDonald thing as well, where, Mike McDaniel, where like you get fired out of this situation where the salary cap on the roster has been burned to the ground. I'm certainly going to be fine in my next instance as an NFL head coach. But I just, why are we trying to bring Isaiah Bond into all of this stuff? Why are we trying to bring Quinshon Judkins in a week before it's necessary? It's not like an anti-Quinshon Judkins thing, but week 3 or week 4 would have been fine to try and get some of this stuff going. I mean, you had a game here where even though the Baltimore Ravens put up 41 points because Lamar Jackson is destroying these teams with the deep passes as well, Ben, I don't know if you know this, but Devontae Walker is 1,000% for touchdowns in his NFL
Right.
career.
Yeah. 3 catches, 3 touchdowns.
But the Browns actually played some fantastic defense in this game. They have one of the all-time game-wrecking defenders on their team. They held Lamar Jackson in check as a runner. Derrick Henry was 11 for 23 in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some opportunities. It was 10-3 at halftime. It'll be interesting to see, because the things that you read out of Cleveland strongly suggest that Stefanski thinks that Dylan Gabriel is awesome. He's super perturbed. He's having to deal with the Sanders element back there behind that. I was pretty excited about the possibilities with Joe Flacco, and he does throw 45 passes in this game, which again is a big part of the thesis, but he looked really, really bad and not able to really get the ball, to someone like a Judy, and in a situation where that kind of mixed again with Judkins. It was just weird, because then even though there were only 2 sacks, there were a lot of these 20 incompletions from Flacco where he was forced to roll. And then as soon as Joe Flacco is forced to roll, he should just immediately throw the ball out of bounds, because only terrible things. He can't move at all. Right. And
he never could, but now he's a 40-year-old.
So, I mean, the Gabriel thing is just complete garbage time flukiness, but we're probably already getting pretty close to where it just makes sense for him to play. And I think the offense probably would function fine if that happens.
Interesting. Let's see. What other games were fun ones? There were a ton of fun games today, as you noted. It was like working through the games. Often there are boring games and I get done with them and it's easy for me to move to the next game. These games that are really crazy, go down to the wire, go to overtime, the Dallas Giants game. When I finish that kind of a game, I usually need like a moment to process and like wipe my memory. I try to start the next game and I like can't pay attention because I'm like, well, this is a boring first quarter. It's 0-0. Like I just watched the most intense thing I've ever watched. But there were several of those games this week, as you noted. Detroit ran away from Chicago in the end. That was a really fun first half, though. Miami and New England ended up being an incredible game down the stretch. We talked about the Denver-Indianapolis game. That was an awesome game. The Colts look like a legit team. They ended up getting the W there, and props to them because Denver's a really good team. Obviously, Denver probably should have won that game if they just don't commit that pretty costly leverage penalty at the end there.
Well, and Bo Nix was fantastic in this game, but the one mistake was a terrible mistake that you can't make. If you want to be an above average playoff and above average overall, and then playoff QB, you can't make the mistake that he made late in that game. Before we get to that, though, this Lions game, right? You get annihilated by the Packers on the road. You're going to play the Bears here. So you got the new coordinator. He needs to show that the Packers game is a one-off. And then also because of all of the contrast there with Ben Johnson, I mean, this was the game where it really was kind of on Detroit to show that the reason they have been good the past several years was not Ben Johnson. And it was sort of a weird vibe because you certainly didn't feel like there was any mean-spiritedness to it, in that you get the impression that Dan Campbell and the players and just everybody in Detroit loves Ben Johnson. At the same time, he's no longer part of that organization. And it was imperative for them to demonstrate that he was not the reason that they were good. And they put 52 points on the Bears in order to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said that really, really well. I also think, from my perspective, it was sort of silly to ever think that this offense wasn't going to be that great. I mean, I took Detroit -6.5 at Stealing Lines, and I felt like they were going to be great back at home in the Dome. I talked about this a little bit, I think, last week, and then in Stealing Signals that week one outdoors, Goff's had the outdoor struggles throughout his career. You're playing the Packers defense. It looks so incredible. And we knew it was going to, and I don't even think the Lions looked that bad in Green Bay. They moved the ball. Goff got baited into an interception like deep in the red zone on one. They had a couple other drives where they moved the ball, but just didn't really convert down there. But there was some yardage in that game. Anyway, they come back here and they didn't look amazing in the first half necessarily. They looked really good. But as soon as the second half started as well, I mean, they closed the first half well. They get it to 10 points, and the second half starts. They score touchdowns on both their first two drives, and just like that, it's 38-14, and they've completely – I mean, you're like, oh, this game's over. They hit Jameson Williams for a huge play down into the red zone. The next drive, they hit him for a long touchdown. He has the hilarious stat line of just 2 touches, but he has over 100 yards, and it was those 2 plays in the third quarter.
Ben, I'm watching this play here, and we had Jameson Williams going on a variety of teams. And it's certainly a little bit nerve-wracking with all the other guys they've got, with how he looked in week 1, all of these things. He does have a play early on where I think he has the defense beat, and Goff misses him. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, well, that's reminiscent of a couple of years ago, certainly reminiscent of some of those Mahomes throws we have mentioned. And then he has that long play where, he weaves through traffic and just, he's so much more athletic than everybody else. No one can touch him. But then by the time he's down to about the 10, I could have tackled him. Like, where's the conditioning here? You're talking about like the fastest man in football, and he's running like a 6.5 40 in his last 5 yards. Come on. You got to be able to.
He did get tired.
When Usain Bolt would be like, it's when you go from the 100 to like the 120 range that you really separate yourself. And that's where you got to gap the entire field.
That's a very specific but probably valid point. He did get tired. I thought he did a lot of running, and he's probably not going to do a lot of 100-yard to 120-yard running. There's not a lot of those types of plays, but it is a fair point. But no, I felt like in this situation or with the Lions and where they are and what they are, what we saw here looked a lot like Detroit's typical approach. There was enough of a framework for how they do things. These players have all played together enough. Jared Goff understands, enough of the things that Ben Johnson brought to be able to not necessarily implement them on his own, but be able to speak up in meeting rooms and things, even if the offensive coordinator isn't as good of an offensive coordinator as Ben Johnson. Hey, these are the things we want in this game plan. These are the looks that I like. These are the plays I like. A lot of times they talk about offensive coordinators talking with the quarterbacks about what plays they like and what calls they like against certain defenses and all those things. It's not like just Ben Johnson makes all these decisions and then all of the other people involved are all just chess pieces that move around. They're all humans that have read and reacted to all this stuff as well. The Amon-Ra and Goff connection, that touchdown before half where they get that extra play because it's kind of a weird clock element, a mistake from the official. He stops the clock on a catch by Isaac Tesla, which, by the way, an incredible catch for the second straight week. This guy's playing like 3 snaps, but is making one of the best 3 catches of the week, both of the first 2 weeks. But he lands inbounds, they clock it, and then the clock, was still running, but the official had stopped it. And so then they have to go back and say, 10-second runoff, but you're going to still have 6 seconds and the clock's going to wind. Everyone gets set up and, this was a big mistake, but there's 6 seconds and the clock's going to wind. And they had a second to talk, and Campbell's talking to Goff there, but Goff knows he's just going to go right to his guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, for a one-on-one little comeback to the front pylon, and he hits him, touchdown. And it looked way too easy, right? I mean, the defense knows they got to run that play really quickly, so it's an incompletion. So that, or if it's an incompletion, they have time to kick the field goal, and yet they still just let him run this quick comeback. And I mean, that's just because Amon-Ra is so good. He ends up with 3 touchdowns in this game. But that stuff is not Ben Johnson. That is not Ben, or even if he was the one who implemented it, it has evolved and grown beyond him to where Jared Goff and Amon-Ra do that now. They just know that. That's a connection that they have. So anyway, there's enough here. There's still enough talent on the offensive line, even without Ragnow and Zeitler's gone. He was only there for 1 year, but they do lose 2 of their interior linemen from last year. Their line's not quite as good. Yeah, their play calling might not be quite as inspired, but it's not going to fall through, through the floor here. And clearly we saw that in this game. They scored 52 points and really put a statement on that.
Yeah. And on the other side, Roma Odunze has been, I mean, there are even some additional plays in these first 2 games that he can make, or that you'd like to see him make. But I mean, he's separated so much from DJ Moore, which it's still just 2 weeks. And we certainly saw a ton of things from week 1 that it was possible that they were strong indicators of what we would get the rest of the way. They just completely flipped back the opposite direction in week 2. But with Odunze, we get this second consecutive week where he looks like someone who can get open, someone who, has this rapport with Caleb Williams, someone that the coaching staff likes as a potential foundation piece. You don't really get that vibe at all through 2 weeks with DJ Moore. And I mean, we're still in this early process where Luther Burden gets out there, gets open. Caleb Williams spikes the ball at his feet, catches the other, pass that was available there. But we're still in the time period here where Burden and Colston Loveland combine for only 3 targets, and that is going to evolve. But certainly the 11 targets, 7 catches, 128 yards, 2 scores for Roma Odunze during a time period where Caleb Williams still basically looks awful, right? So, I mean, if Caleb Williams starts playing at normal QB levels, we are talking about now, I think, the potential for a second year, not just a good season, but maybe a second year eruption from Roma Odunze.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said about Roma Odunze. I thought you were going to say that he should have caught a few more of those non-caught targets, which is true. He had his hands on a couple balls. Obviously I'm a little bit of a Roma Odunze homer with the UW Husky tie-in there, but there's still some plays from him where I'm like, you made that play in college, dude. Like, I think he could have had an even bigger day. But he looked.
I mean, there were a couple
incredible.
of soft plays that were sort of similar to the Brian Thomas things, but
yeah,
unlike Brian Thomas, he went 7, 128, and 2.
That's right.
In a game where his quarterback did not play well.
Yeah, he still made a lot of good plays. That's exactly what I would say. Is he never, not once in college, ever struck me as playing soft, but it did happen a little bit today where I was like, man, you got to be stronger to the ball there. I mean, and it happened a little bit last year as well. I noticed that in his rookie. I was like, man, he seems a little bit not afraid, but just maybe a little overwhelmed by the NFL game at this point. He looks better this year. He looks more comfortable, but you're still seeing that a little bit.
He'd probably be like, it's terrifying to be out there when Caleb Williams is putting balls in the locations he's putting them.
I mean, it's probably the same thing with Brian Thomas and Trevor Lawrence, right? But the thing with the really great wide receivers, they talk about that my ball mentality, and you can see it every time the ball is in anywhere. They're going to go get the ball. It's their ball. That's the Malik Nabers thing, man. He is so aggressive at attacking the football in the air. He's always making a play on the ball. You could underthrow him by 20 yards, and he's going to go make a play on the ball in some capacity. He's going to do his best. Then there's other guys that don't always do that. And that's just the difference, I think, at least from that perspective, that separates some of those guys. Shawn, Troy Franklin, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. No other Bronco has more than 4 targets in this game. What can we expect the rest of the season? Because I don't know anything about what to expect. What's he going to do next week? What's he going to do the rest of the year? Where do we go from here? Help me understand.
Doesn't it feel like one, though, where next week Pat Bryant will draw 9 targets?
Yes.
And or just that Cortland Sutton, 4 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards. They're not going to let that go. So you're going to have some of the stuff swing back. It was a weird, kind of frustrating game in that so much of what both Bo Nix and Troy Franklin did well did happen in the first half. And so the adjustments that the Colts made not only started to keep him in check, but kept the whole offense in check better in the second half. I think you have this potential to run too much. Although, and again, this game, terribly frustrating. RJ Harvey, an impressive kickoff return, but carries 5 times for 8 yards. You had a really nice reception from Tyler Bidet. You have, this was kind of what we're hoping for, and what we have been talking about, and certainly what you were emphasizing a lot with J.K. Dobbins, which is that, and especially if RJ Harvey's not involved, the Dobbins is going to score. And the 14 for 76 with a touchdown here, he doesn't look like a difference maker, but he's that same guy where in short areas he can really make people miss, and that's imperative, right? Because
He's never been in this offense. In the NFL. He's never been in an offense like Sean Payton's Denver offense, and I mean he hasn't even really he catches one ball here. He hasn't really got going as a pass catcher. I do think that could come too, but I mean this is an offense that, like, again, I mean we're hammering Javonte when he's been looking good for Dallas the last couple of weeks, but he looked bad last year, and it's still created opportunities for him. Got him a lot of passing opportunities, 70 targets last year. He doesn't have a ton of touchdowns or anything, but I mean, J.K. Dobbins just looks like a souped-up version of what Javonte Williams was giving these guys last year. It's not world-beating, and when he gets out into space, you can see that he still doesn't really have that second gear and that long speed, and unfortunately probably is not going to get that back at this point, but he's quick, right? And he's physical, and he still understands how to read holes and hit them. And anyway, he looked a lot of fun. On the other side,
one of the things that kind of happened in this game, Ben, I talk about how they wiped out the Broncos in the second half. Part of it, again, is the Colts' ability to sort of just dominate the ball. And so when you make mistakes, you just don't have much in the way of possessions. This was a 10-9 game in terms of possessions in favor of the Colts. But, I mean, the Broncos only ran 54 plays. Their 54 plays were not bad, and they scored 28 points. But as well as they played in the first half, if you just have the ball more, which is especially with their defense, you would like to think you're going to mostly do. I mean, you put this game away, you score 40, all of those types of things, but the Colts are a real problem.
The Colts on the other side looked so good. They got Josh Downs going in this one. He leads the team with 8 targets and 6 catches and looks really smooth throughout. Obviously Pittman, continuing to get Warren going. But Jonathan Taylor is the best running back in the NFL right now. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs probably is. I'm overstating it, but Jonathan Taylor looks so explosive right now. I mean,
I don't know if people know, but I'm super fast.
He looks like the best version of him, which is obviously a huge compliment. Saquon Barkley looks like the last year's version of Taylor, where he wasn't quite himself, version of Saquon Barkley. Like they look like they flipped from last year, and it goes to show that the margins, being that efficient. And I don't know if it goes into the offseason regimen or what, but what gets him that extra little bit. But Taylor didn't look like this last year. He did earlier in his career in that huge season, both in his rookie year, and then I think the second season was the really monstrous year. Barkley had looked like it in his rookie season earlier in his career and got it back last year. And we saw this explosive element that he didn't always have in every year with the Giants, and people blamed it on the Giants, but it also was how he looked at other points. It's kind of hard to articulate, hard to explain, but right now through 2 weeks, who would you rather have in fantasy football?
I think you would rather have Taylor, although, I mean, it's still going to be very close. It's shocking, though. And I do feel pretty good about this one, and that I do feel like this is probably one I'm going to get right. Talking about how the thesis from last year I didn't feel like was invalidated by what happened last year. And it just, your offense being good potentially is such a massive amplifier. We're talking about a game where, I mean, Daniel Jones throws for over 300 yards, average over 9 yards per attempt, takes a single sack. It was kind of funny to sort of follow the QB battle in the New York papers, where all the Giants media is talking about how terrible it is and what the Colts experience is going to be. And it's like, no, I mean, it's a different situation and different coaching staff. It's also kind of fascinating to watch. You and I talked a little bit about Adonai Mitchell and what his situation was probably going to be. He only goes 2 for 20 in this game, but you certainly can see the threat that he poses. Mm-hmm. It's a game where Alec Pierce, who's, I mean, just completely a side piece in this offense, goes 4 for 68. You mentioned how good Josh Downs looked. There was a kind of funny moment in this game where Michael Pittman caught a pass, and the commentator was like, oh, almost every team goes away from Surtain, but they're going right at him. Like, I mean, he's 4 for 40. They're not going at him. They're just efficiently moving the ball through everybody, right? And so when you complete a pass to Michael Pittman, it just, it looks like everything else is happening. I mean, Tyler Warren was 4 for 79, and if anything, it was a disappointing game. I mean, it wasn't. He looks just absolutely amazing. the weapons that they have. And then one of the reasons that Daniel Jones goes for over 300 yards and averages over 9 yards per attempt is because Jonathan Taylor caught a 43-yard pass. Because once he got the pass out on the edge, everybody on the defense was like Denver thinks they have the best defense and maybe the best team in the NFL. And you could see those guys are like, oh, nobody has the angle because that guy's just way too fast.
He's way faster than all of us. He also caught the only touchdown from Jones. It was only a 7-yard TD and he was open in space, but just even, I mean, his explosion is just crazy. He had a 68-yard run in this game. The reception, the reference was a 43-yard reception. He winds up with over 200 total yards. He looks so good so far this year. He looked really, really good in week 1 and maybe didn't have the full stats to back it up, but I wrote it up in signals that a game like this was going to be coming pretty soon. Against the Broncos, he goes out and puts up 200, plus yards, and really is the reason they won. I mean, not the only reason. The whole offense is so good. You mentioned it. Tyler Warren looks so good. I mean, he had a downfield catch and run that was a big play. That was looks like a 41-yarder. He had a catch in the flat where he does a little, like the Chris Berman whoop sound where he does a little step through and just lets a guy overrun him and then takes about 2 steps and then does it again and lets another guy overrun him and then just keeps going. And he ends up getting like 10 yards on a, it was a 1 air yard throw right at the line of scrimmage, but he just cut back on 2 straight defenders who both just massively over pursue. And you're like, I mean, he made that look really easy, but most tight ends don't make NFL defenders look like that.
He gets the only non-Jonathan Taylor carry in this game, which is sort of interesting as well.
That was the other really funny thing was Taylor's 68-yard run looked a little bit like your Jameson Williams point where he lost speed at the end, but he had just gotten 2 carries before that. So when I wrote it up and how I'm going to write it up tomorrow, I was like, I mean, he probably should have already come off the field before that long run because he seemed gassed like from the start of that long run. And then he stayed on the field for the next play. Every other back in the league goes off the field after a 68-yard run. Taylor's like, no, I'm still on the field. Like DJ Giddens didn't come in week 1 didn't get a touch until after Taylor left for the game in the blowout. I don't think DJ Giddens is going to get many touches this year, Sean. It's unfortunate, but
Shane Steichen was into this one. He's the guy who's coaching like, I'm going to get a mega contract after this season because I'm one of the best coaches in all of football. And some of the things that the Colts were fired up about and complaining about were, things that were very biased from their own perspective. It was kind of funny because I think it was Xavier Howard was just distraught about these pass interference calls he was getting where he was grabbing the guys and then he was pulling the jersey and then he was tackling them. And then when they throw the flag, the entire Colts sideline was acting like the game was being officiated by intramural referees from, the other school. So it's like, those things are not legal. There was you mentioned Greg Olson, and I love him. He does a fantastic job on the telecasts and just seems like an unbelievable person just overall. He did have a hilarious call in the game today, though, where there was a play where the defensive back had the receiver by the sideline and grabbed him and pulled him out of bounds and then threw him on the ground as the ball was coming in. And Greg Olson's read on it was, I don't know what the defensive back is supposed to do in that situation. Well, not the 3 things that he did, because all of those individually would have been pass interference.
I do remember that one. I was like, I kind of disagree with you on this one. Oh, man. Well, we can do this all night. I know you're not feeling well. We probably shouldn't keep you.
Give me one more game, Ben. We
got to talk about Miami and the Patriots, I think. I thought the Dolphins offense looked good again. Devon Achane gets the 10 targets, 8 catches, 92 yards and a TD. He looks explosive. Waddle catches a TD. They get Tyreek going down the field. I thought they were going to win this. They wind up losing. It's a fun game late. The Patriots, it's kind of annoying because they were talking about they might need to do the backfield a little differently, shake things up. Apparently what they meant was use less Travion Henderson because they really relied on Ramondre. And then they gave Antonio Gibson 5 carries.
Wanted to get Gibson going. And I've told you that I don't watch the special teams unless there's a touchdown. And when they had that touchdown, I'm like, please make it Travion. And then I rewind and I'm hearing, Gibson has the ball and such and such. I'm like, man, that doesn't help either.
No, he has the long kick return there. On the other side, Malik Washington has a long punt return TD, and Miami will use. I mean, they were using Tyreek back there to return punts. They'll use whoever they think is going to, break. I don't know. I'm excited about Malik Washington. They're giving him carries. He got 3 carries in this game. Ollie Gordon got 1. You were just talking about the Tyler Warren note. Similar thing here. Malik Washington gets basically the RB2 work. He got multiple handoffs. Like these weren't like jet motion handoffs. These were single back formation, or maybe it was shotgun. I can't recall, or pistol or something. But
then it seems like you're the person to go to on this. You would have this note. Malik Washington catches 1 ball for 2 yards. He had like 7 other catches that were wiped out by penalty.
Yes.
What was the exact number? Because it wasn't 7.
I have it as 2 in my notes, that he had 2 catches that were wiped out by penalties. I could be wrong. One was an illegal shift on him. The other one was an offensive line penalty. But yeah, he lost a couple, and then a couple catches, and then he gets the rushing work. He gets the punt return for a TD. I mean, this guy's super talented. If and when Tyreek Hill, freaks out, they're 0-2 now. As soon as they get to they're going on a short week to Buffalo. They play Thursday Night Football on the road in Buffalo. They're going to be 0-3. Tyreek Hill is going to, do something crazy, and then Malik Washington's going to play that role the rest of the year.
You should definitely have him stashed, even in pretty shallow leagues at this point. I think you want to not leave Malik Washington out there on waivers for somebody else.
Yeah. But what did you think of the Dolphins offense, the Mike McDaniel situation? Obviously, losing this game gets us one step closer to the Dolphins offense potentially not having its architect on the sideline, which would be a little bit of a problem.
You get a pretty bad vibe from the whole Dolphins situation. This is one where it's just so very clearly not the head coach's fault, unless you think all of the really terrible personnel moves are being directly dedicated, or that he is the guy behind all of those, that he's the architect of the roster, because the roster is the problem. Their defense is completely hollowed out. We know their offensive line has these problems. This is a game, now granted, it's a game at home against what's probably a very bad New England Patriots team, or at least a mediocre Patriots team that's building, right? The Patriots by the end of the season could be quite good. So you still lose, but this, if you fire the person who got 6 for 109 for Tyreek Hill, who's having all the problems that Hill's having, there was all the drama this week, and even sending back before that, but just, he's heading for another suspension based on personal conduct. It seems like you have Jalen Waddle, who looked atrocious in week 1, goes 568-1. You have Achane and this thesis with him as the pass catcher. 8 catches, 92 yards, a touchdown, looks absolutely shot out of a cannon. There was a second, third long, whatever it was, in the first half there where, and this wasn't the long touchdown that he scored, but one where when he runs his route, it's a similar type. It's not the Christian McCaffrey thing, but you watch the defense that the Patriots had set up and you're sort of wondering what they're thinking, because they have essentially a linebacker on him. And as soon as he just runs a route to the center of the field, there's no one around him. He catches the ball and then runs down the center of the field, easily picks up this long conversion, in part because the defense didn't make sense, which part of that is the McDaniel design. And then part of it is that Achane is unbelievably fast. And people know that he's fast, right? But when I wrote the article about him, I want to talk about how even within the context of fast people, the times that he put up in the testing coming into the NFL were pretty unique. And then obviously we've witnessed that as an NFL player where, even the guys, the number of big plays he's been able to generate are up in that category with guys like Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor, the best players in football. And it's kind of hard to fathom that the Dolphins would go down a path where, in addition to all the things they don't have organizationally, they would also not have the play caller that can accomplish these things. I mean, you're talking about them getting beaten 40-0 every week. It's brutally bad.
Everyone keeps talking about him being the first coach fired. It's been talked about over and over, and I've been kind of disagreeing in the write-ups, but the vibes are so bad that, you start to wonder. But also, if I recall, Stephen Ross has been like hesitant to fire coaches in season a little bit in the past where they kind of needed it. And more to the point, what you just said, you fire him, you're not going to get better. Like, there's not going to be any interim coach bump. It's going to get worse immediately. This is way too, even if you don't really love him, you need to make the changes in the offseason because it's way too specific of an offense and a design and the way everything runs on the timing and the play calling and everything that they do with Tua is entirely based around what Mike McDaniel brought from his first season and has built since then. You fire him, I mean, you're just hoping somebody else can run it. The offensive coordinator, whoever you promote, can run it to some degree of what he could do. You just let him coach out the year regardless. I mean, I don't care if they're 0-16. It just doesn't, it wouldn't make any sense. You would put out such a poor product. But to your point on Achane, I mean, he looks like the whole offense. He looks so exciting. The idea of, this offense being one where the volume can really consolidate, all of the production can really consolidate. We saw Hill and Waddle both have good days today. They felt like ancillary pieces. The offense felt like it was flowing through Achane through most of the first half and really late in the game when they needed it. You talked about how explosive he looks. He has another long touchdown at the very end that would have won this game by 1 point, but he just stepped out of bounds at about the 40-yard line. They wind up not able to convert on that drive. They lose. I mean, we're talking inches, or he has a 40-yard touchdown on top of this really strong game.
And I mean, this is a game where they averaged 7 yards per play. Those are huge numbers. They were at 6.9. This was a game where the Patriots scored on 7 of 9 true drives. Drake Maye and company that have again, May look good in this game. It was exciting for him. And yes. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson had a good game, but I mean, this is a team that doesn't have a receiver. Ramondre Stevenson led with 5 for 88, but no one drew more than his 5 targets, the 5 targets for Diggs that went just 4 for 32. You did get an excellent touchdown from Quinshon Booty, but that was his only target, right? In that context, I mean, you still lost, but it wasn't the McDaniel side of it that was the issue. Yeah. I mean, for the careers of the offensive players and for the fun of watching the Dolphins, I hope that they stick it out as long as possible. On the Patriots side, Drake Maye looked very good, 19 for 23, and he does take the 3 sacks, but his mobility played up in this one more than it did in week 1. Ramondre looked great. It was frustrating because I do think that Travion was going to have a more meaningful role than how it turned out. And he did go 2 for 30 as a receiver. You still have that electricity there. But on one of the plays in the middle of the game, he got absolutely blown up on a pass blocking snap that ruined that drive. And that was lights out for him. He barely played the rest of the way.
I missed that. But no, May looked really, really good. I agree. I mean, this was the game where you saw the stuff from last year where, we were talking about how good he looked last year. And I think anyone who watched the film was talking about this all offseason, that Drake Maye was, they had their guy, New England. They needed to build the rest of the roster, but they got the quarterback right. I mean, this was the game. You saw the way all of that came together, that he has all the elements, that he can throw vertically, that he takes the the smart decisions when he needs to. He took 3 sacks in this game, but he scrambled well, 10 for 31 and a TD on the ground. That mobility is clearly plus. It's maybe not plus, but it's he moves well for a quarterback who can also read out the defense and throw the ball and do all of those things. And so it's, that's all the tools that you need in the modern NFL. He's got them all. Certainly needs more weapons, as you talked about. Certainly needs more. I would say more seasoning and more growth, but really it is just he needs more weapons around him. I think at this point he needs players around him. He doesn't. He's ready. It looks like, frankly, to play a lot better statistically than he has, but he doesn't necessarily have the guys to make all the plays for him every week. But the Mac Hollins TD was awesome. It was I think maybe a play fake. There's sort of a layered design, but you see Mac Hollins break free and the ball is out. Like, I don't even know how Drake Maye made that read as quickly as he did and released the ball as quickly as he did. But it's reminiscent of going back to like the Peyton Manning years, where people would always talk about Peyton Manning would throw these ducks and he didn't throw a good spiral and this and that. Peyton Manning read the defense and knew his routes better than anyone. And he saw it a second or two quicker than any other quarterback in the NFL. And so he would throw to a spot where his route was going to be and no defender was going to be before any of the other 21 players on the field had any idea that that's where the play was going to wind up. Drake Maye's touchdown to Mac Hollins, it's not exactly on that level, but the second that Mac Hollins is open, I'm still processing it as a viewer, and it's a lot easier to see when you're watching it. The ball is out, and it's floating that way, and it doesn't even need to be any kind of a bullet or anything. And it's just an easy play as Mac Hollins moves into space. That whole idea of throwing with anticipation and all that. But I was just impressed. I think he was coming off a play fake or something. How quickly, when his eyes got up, the ball got out. And he's like, yeah, no, that throw's there. I trust what I see. I'm putting the ball out there. And I'm not going to bring a defender into this play by delaying it and waiting for something. One of the plays today that stuck out to me was Cam Ward on a play fake, roll out to the right, waiting, and he's looking downfield. Looks like he has no one open, and then he tries to come back late to Chimere DK on the sideline, and DK's wide open. I went back to it like 3 or 4 times, and I think what happened is Ward saw him, but was then big game hunting because he had a lot of room. There was no threat to sack him or whatever. He was looking downfield, trying to find an explosive play, trying to find one, knew he had this 15-yard throw in the bag, and then he came back to it late, didn't set his feet, and didn't make the throw that was there, ended up sailing it out of bounds. And I'm just like, man, you got a guy wide open in the NFL for a first down, and he may catch and run it here. I understand that you're not under any pressure in the backfield, and you can look downfield and try to find Calvin Ridley or whoever for a bomb, but make sure you leave yourself enough time to square your feet up and set your feet and throw to this guy who's wide open. And that's the kind of thing that I think Maye did the opposite of, essentially. As soon as he saw the play that was there, he's putting it there. There's quarterbacks that always take those throws when they're available, so sometimes to a fault, and they need to be trying to push it downfield more. But I like and I think the modern NFL calls for it. I like those quarterbacks that if a guy's open, they get it out there. They're distributors. They give their skill position players an opportunity to catch the ball, run. It's great for fantasy. We get a lot of completions and all those things. What did you think of you want to talk about the Rams and Titans? What did you think of Ward today?
I think, you love the competitiveness. You like the arm strength. It's tough. He doesn't have a particularly good team around him. He did, I think, distribute in an interesting way. And you got the 6 targets for Ridley, the 6 targets for Io Manor, the 6 targets for Okonkwo, and that's where the ball should be going. You get, Io Manor, as you've been pointing out, he looks like he will be the guy. It's been a really tough start for Calvin Ridley, a guy that they were pretty excited about, but is not playing well through the first couple weeks here. Now, opposing defenses know that. And so if Io Manor is your clear-cut number 2, then what the defense has to do is very clear. And it's the same thing that Tony Pollard is dealing with, at least to an extent, where the defense, if they can take away 2 things, they're going to shut you down. the thing that stood out to me in this game, Ben, was the Rams are really trying to justify the Cooper Kupp move and that contract to Devontae Adams. He was 6 for 106 and 1 in this game, but it was on 13 targets. And those 7 completions, he was not open on any of them. I mean, he might have gotten like 8 end zone targets in this game to get into the 6, 106 and 1. And he's not open. What is there that much of a need? It's like you can be like, okay, I mean, Devontae Adams is the number 2. We don't need to be living in a world where it's like 1 week Puka Nacua will get the most. The next week, Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua went 8 for 91 while dealing with like whatever the Rams are trying to do here, and scored a 45-yard receiving touchdown and rushing touchdown. And the Rams' short yardage play was probably the perfect sort of counterpoint. Now, I mean, it's Titans versus Eagles in terms of who you're playing against, but you mentioned the problem with the Chiefs' short yardage play. If you're going to have someone going horizontal to the line of scrimmage, make it someone like Puka Nacua, force the defense to actually cover horizontally, because if they don't, then you give them a 45-yard rushing touchdown to Nacua. If you do, then it weakens the defense for the inevitable plunges that you're going to have most of the time. There's a reason that this Rams team under Sean McVay has been very good.
Yeah, they do the wide receiver rushing better than anyone. They've been doing that for years and years. I've always had to make a note in my projections. I got to project a few of the wide receiver carries every year. Speaking of Rams rushing the ball, is this the week that you admit that Blake Corum looks like a good football player this year? Good preseason, Sean. Better preseason than Jarquez Hunter. And you just kept talking about Jarquez Hunter. And Blake Corum just looked better. It was playing in front of him. And now Corum's playing ahead of him. Obviously, Hunter's been inactive, and maybe Hunter, you know, if something were to happen to Kyron Williams, if Hunter were active, could fit in more. But Corum looked good in this game. He earned more work as the game went along. I thought he looked a lot more explosive than Kyron Williams.
So I thought that you were going to ask me if this was the game where I admitted that Blake Corum was the backup, which I think is accurate.
What about the 5 carries for 44 yards and a TD?
He looked good. He looked good. And one of the things is that in a competent offense, Blake Corum should look pretty good. He's one of these players where it's a little bit like the Tank Bigsby situation. Bigsby was nowhere near as good as people wanted him to be originally. He also was someone who can play some. Now, Corum, I think, is better than that, right? But the Corum thing is a little bit like the Charbonnet and Bigsby second-year bumps, where as soon as you recalibrate to the correct expectations, then those guys can kind of get you where you need to go, at least if the context is right. Now, I do want to point out that I'm not ready to completely give up the ghost yet, because, Ben, you're making the assumption that Jarquez Hunter was inactive because he didn't touch the ball in this game. He was inactive in week 1. He was active today, probably because other people were hurt and they needed like the bodies, but he was active today. So week 3, maybe we get a dynamic touch.
Wait, time out. You're not going to give up the ghost because he was active in a way that I didn't even know because he didn't touch the ball. I would rather he was inactive. He's on all of our rosters. I can at least lie to myself that, like, as soon as he gets active, he's going to get the ball. They made him active and they didn't give him a single touch. Oh, no. I'm never going to financially recover from this.
I mean, it's such a bummer that Kyron Williams looks so bad, even though as we're rooting for him kind of to fail without getting hurt, because that's, you know, what the whole point of fantasy football is the players you have, you want them to score more than the players you don't have. Man, it's a bummer. He looks bad. I mean, he needs to be benched entirely, which is hard for them to do after they extended him, which it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah,
I will go back to the well with my point that Jarquez Hunter was the best prospect of the 3 guys, and he was the player that the people covering the team claimed was the best during practice leading up to the season.
Well, I mean, if this goes like any of the other ones that we've discussed, Troy Franklin and all the rest, then he's going to be the starter in like 2 weeks. So
it doesn't look like 2 weeks at this point, does it, Ben?
No, it looks like it's going to be a little longer, but I am
like 2026.
I'm certainly willing to ride with your track record on those types of calls. It is unassailable. Shawn, this has been super, super fun. I got to get some sleep. I got to write quick this week because in 2 days it is my younger daughter's 10th birthday. Happy birthday, little Emerson. And yeah, I got to get through Stealing Signals quick this week so I can do all the fun stuff when she gets home from school on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. The family stuff. Hope everyone is doing well, has had a good weekend, had a chance to recover with family and friends, and enjoyed the shootouts and all of these really cool fantasy performances we got in week 2. This is Stealing Minutes. I'm Shawn Siegele. With me is Ben Gretch. Make sure you have your Stealing Signals sub, those newsletters, the week recaps, and Ben was telling you a little bit about the introductions. 75% of the people who subscribe claim that is the reason they do, rave about those. Ben talking about football is the best thing you can have. We'd love to have you guys over at RotoViz. Coupon code RVRadio2025 at checkout for 10% off your 1-year sub. We got a lot of cool in-season content. My article is titled The Banana Stand. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.